Hi, VencoreWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Friday, August 25th. Hurricane Harvey is now a strong Category 2 system closing in on the southeastern coastline of Texas. It will produce some incredible amounts of rain over the next several days in the southeastern part of Texas. This system will slow down to a crawl, perhaps even take a loop back around once it goes inland, and then it might grind to a halt, loop back around out over the water for a little bit before it makes a second landfall, perhaps up the coast of northeastern Texas, or even as far up the coast as southwestern Louisiana. Again, the fact that it will slow down to a halt and take this possible loop is reason to believe that it'll produce heavy rain over a long period of time, several days. 5 or 6 days from now, we still may be talking about Harvey over the southeastern part of Texas. So again, tremendous amounts of rainfall expected along the southeastern coastline of Texas all the way into southern Louisiana. 20, 30, 40 inches of rain possible. Has this ever happened before? Yes, it has. Tropical Storm Allison, for example, in June of 2001 produced as much as 40 inches of rain in the same general area, southeastern Texas. In fact, during that tropical storm, Houston had 29 inches of rain in less than a 12-hour period. So this sort of thing can happen, and it looks like it is very likely to happen again with tremendous amounts of rain over the next several days. This is a look at the current locations of not only Hurricane Harvey, but there's a tropical system just off the Florida west coast. That particular system is of interest as well. It looks like it'll slowly intensify as it rides up along the east coast to around the Outer Banks. If indeed it becomes a tropical storm or a hurricane, and I believe it will, it'll become named Irma. From the position of the Outer Banks, it looks like it could come close enough to the mid-Atlantic coastline that soon-to-be Irma could actually throw some rain our way in D.C., Philadelphia, perhaps even New York City, somewhere late Monday, Tuesday time frame. But for right now, the big story is Harvey. Here is the current location. It, again, is a strong Category 2, sustained winds at 110 miles per hour, very likely to become a Category 3 over the next few hours. All it takes from this point is very little in the way of intensification, and we'll show in a moment there is reason to believe that further intensification is likely. Again, it moves northwest, now moving northwest at 9 miles per hour, probably makes landfall just to the north of Corpus Christi, which is important information for Corpus Christi itself. If indeed it makes landfall just to its north, that should lessen the impact a little bit in the Corpus Christi area, but then it's going to run into a roadblock in the upper part of the atmosphere. Very strong high pressure centered over the interior western U.S. pretty much forces it to grind to a halt and then come looping back around, perhaps out over the water, and then making a second landfall in a few days, northeastern Texas or southwestern Louisiana, and then eventually continuing off to the north and east. We'll focus in on that track in a moment. Meanwhile, this system right here, a tropical wave indeed, very likely to turn to the northeast, probably strengthened to the point that it is likely to become a tropical storm and perhaps even Hurricane Category 1 by the time it gets to around this region right here in the Outer Banks. Now, at this point in time, it could go that way and it could go that way. I think it'll probably come close enough to the mid-Atlantic coastline that it could throw some rain back into at least the D.C., Philadelphia region, maybe even in New York City somewhere late Monday night into Tuesday. That still remains to be seen, but now that is on the table for the mid-Atlantic region. But the big story right now over the immediate future is Hurricane Harvey. Well, here's the latest look from an infrared point of view, colorized infrared. Harvey right here again, sustained winds 110 miles per hour, moving to the northwest at 9 miles per hour, and it should continue that northwest track over the next several hours, making landfall late tonight or early tomorrow. There are convective rings right now around that eye. You can see the last couple of frames, that eye becomes a little bit better defined, telling me there's some intensification going on. When you see convective rings surrounding the eye, it could very well be undergoing what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. Basically, the current cycle is replaced, the current eye wall is replaced by a new one, and that indeed is typically associated with some intensification. So very likely could become a Category 3 storm over the next few hours before making landfall. Now again, we have not had a major hurricane, Category 3, 4, or 5, hit the U.S. since 2005. 12 years, the longest recorded in history, going back to the middle 1800s without a major hurricane striking to the U.S. Quite amazing, and that could end with Harvey. Not a guarantee. It very well could become a Category 3. Not necessarily going to maintain that strength by the time it makes landfall. It could. Now, the difference between strong Category 2 and a Category 3 will not be a big deal in terms of the prospects for rain. No matter if it's a 2 or a 3, southeastern Texas is going to get tremendous amounts of rain. So that's kind of more important for the record books. And certainly winds are a little bit stronger with a weak Category 3 compared to a strong Category 2. But no matter what the case in terms of the magnitude of the central pressure, very, very heavy rain is expected over the next several days. Meanwhile, here's a tropical wave off the west coast, southwest coast of Florida. It'll begin a turn to the northeast over the next day or so, and again slowly move along the southeast U.S. coastline, probably intensifying into tropical storm and eventually perhaps Category 1 hurricane status. If so, it would become named Irma. Well, here's a very late satellite image. Again, it's still pretty dark in that part of the country, so kind of a dark scene here, but you can see some convective rings around the inner eye wall right in this region right here. It very well could be undergoing an eye wall replacement cycle. Again, that's typically associated with some further intensification. That eye might begin to become better seen on a visible satellite image as the sun goes higher and higher in the sky. Meanwhile, lots of showers and thunderstorms just off the southwest coast of Florida, Key West getting hit. This will ultimately likely become Irma, tropical storm, and eventually maybe even hurricane status as it rides up along the southeast U.S. coastline. But here we go, Hurricane Harvey closing in on the southeast coast of Texas, a strong Category 2 system. Well, in terms of radar, bands of heavy showers and probably embedded thunderstorms already slamming the coastline in southeastern Texas. Here is the center of Hurricane Harvey right now. Again, the yellows here surrounding that eye suggest eye wall replacement cycle being undertaken right now by Harvey, typically associated with some intensification, sustained winds at 110. That eye could very well become better seen on visible satellite image over the next hour or two as the sun goes up in the sky here. And again, very symmetric pattern here, a strong system closing in on the southeastern coastline of Texas. Well, we've talked about this up front. One of the main problems here, one of the big red flags for this system is the fact that Harvey will slow down, grind to a halt, perhaps even take a loop back around, going inland for a little bit, and then, back out over the water. Once back out over the water, it very well could intensify again before making a possible second landfall up the coast in Texas, or perhaps as far up the coast as southwestern Louisiana. This is a series of models, and for the most part, they agree for the beginning stages here. But even many of them agree with a loop. And again, the slow movement will cause rain to pile up over a several-day period in southeastern Texas, and we're anticipating as much as 20, 30, perhaps 40 inches of rain in some areas. Hurricane Harvey right now situated in this region right here. General agreement, it continues northwest. Then it runs into basically a roadblock in the upper part of the atmosphere. Very strong high pressure over the interior western states will force it to grind to a halt, and then it'll tend to loop back around, go back out over the water perhaps, making a second landfall in a few days up the coast of Texas, perhaps as far east as southwestern Louisiana. And while over water, it can intensify again, so it could become a Category 3, weaken to perhaps a Category 1 or so, then come back out over the water and strengthen again, perhaps to a 2 or 3 before making a second possible landfall. And from that point, it'll continue likely to move to the north and east. So this potential track certainly does a couple of things. It really leads you to believe that there will be a tremendous amount of rainfall for a several-day period, and there could very well be 2 landfalls associated with Harvey. One late tonight, early tomorrow in the far southeastern part of Texas, and then if indeed it grinds to a halt, loops back around, comes out over the water again, could make a second landfall in a few days up the coast in northeastern Texas, or perhaps as far as southwestern Louisiana. So an interesting pattern, and certainly one that looks like it'll lead to a tremendous amount of rainfall over the next several days. Well, let's take another look at the European model here. It certainly is indicating a potential loop in Harvey. This is from last night's 0Z model run. All these maps, by the way, available on tropicaltidbits.com. Here's the position of Harvey right now, and take a look as we walk through in 6-hour increments the European model runs here. Well, let's again go through this. This is the European model run from 0Z last night. So this is the initialization position from 0Z last night, and we'll walk through in 24-hour increments just to show the looping pattern that the Euro is forecasting. Again, this is the initialization time last night. Let's now jump ahead here. And now let's take a look at this evening's forecast map. Here we go. Notice on the doorstep of southeastern Texas, 24 hours later, inland in southeastern Texas, 24 hours later, starting to loop back around over the coastline here, another 24 hours. There it goes back out over the water, another 24 hours. We're now 5 days out from last night, back out over the water, intensifying, and 6 days out, makes a second landfall up the coastline in northeastern Texas. So certainly the European model is warning of a grinding to a halt and then an eventual loop back around, and that poses the possibility of a 2 landfalls associated with Hurricane Harvey. No matter the exact track, tremendous amount of rain is headed to southeastern Texas, ultimately into the southwestern part of Louisiana over the next several days. Stay tuned to VencoreWeather.com for updates later today. That's it for now. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.